All right, we're talking today about circulation and lymph systems. And then we'll be talking a little bit about inflammation tomorrow. And today we're going to talk about ginkgo biloba and hawthorn. And tomorrow, turmeric and eyebright, along with inflammation. So the first thing, is that my first slide? I guess it is. My first thing is, what is blood? We think we know what blood is. It's 45% cells. We think of it as very liquid. It is pretty liquid. That 55% of it that is the liquid is 91 or 92% water. But almost half of it is red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And so the rest of that 55% that is liquid, mostly water, and then a little bit of protein. It's a fibrin, which helps your blood clot, globulin, albumin. Those are proteins, and then very, very small amounts of sugar, salts, and fats. Blood is moved around your body by the heart pumping. The heart pumps the blood so it can move. Blood can do so many things for you. That's why we all have it. It's necessary. It's genius. Blood brings your body nutrition. So all those materials of digestion, we talked about digestion and how the digestion breaks down your food into materials. You have amino acids, you have fats, you have sugar molecules, carbohydrate molecules. So all that nutrition gets sent around your body in the blood as well as in the lymph. We'll talk about that in a second. We did actually talk about the lymph a little bit in terms of that's what carries fats to your body, to your brain. So blood will bring your nutrition. It will bring you oxygen. Blood will bring you hormones. It will bring you enzymes. It carries antibodies. It carries immune components, blood clotting agents. It delivers waste from the rest of the body, delivers waste to the lungs, the kidney, the liver, and the skin. Those are how you eliminate waste. All of those, of course, the digestion system as well. But your blood brings the waste to the lungs, and so then you can breathe out the carbon dioxide, for example, or the waste that goes to the kidneys that is then brought out through urine. And skin is a way for waste to leave the body. When you look at your skin breaking out, sometimes that's because you have waste products that need to come out. And so the skin is one method, or one, I can't think of the word. It's just an avenue for waste to leave the body. Liver, of course, we talked about yesterday. So blood vessels, arteries and veins. The arteries are where the blood is being pumped through toward things. The veins are what brings the blood back to the heart. Both have 3-layer walls. Veins are a little thinner than arteries. There's less pressure involved with veins because veins are not pumped by the heart. They're about muscle contraction. So the muscles that are close to the veins contract, and they're one-way valves that blood will move through back up to the heart. Capillaries are not arteries, they're not veins, they're just one layer, that epithelial layer. They're small, thin, fragile. So you have the blood that goes into the capillaries, bringing with it all kinds of nutrients, etc., hormones, etc. Blood flows into the capillaries, and then at the end of the capillary, it's that interstitial space between cells. And so fluid from the capillaries will continue to flow out of the capillaries into that interstitial space. Red blood cells are actually too big, and so they don't flow in. And so your lymph fluid is clear because you're not having blood cells in it. It's just that fluid. And so the fluid brings in those nutrients. That fluid is called lymph. There's a lot more lymph, 1.5, maybe sometimes people even say twice the amount of the blood in your body. You have lymph that is much more lymph than blood, which is crazy when you think about it. We think of ourselves as all full of blood. We don't even consider lymph fluid. We mostly don't know about the lymph system. We certainly don't talk about it very much, but it is really critical to your health because the lymph system is what is bringing the nutrients all the way to the cells. And then it collects the waste. It's sort of like trash collection, right? So here's your nutrients. Let me take away your trash. And so the lymph comes to the cells, brings them nutrients, and then comes away from the cells, bringing the trash through the lymph system. Excuse me. And so that lymph system is full of what we call lymph nodes. You've probably heard of lymph nodes. You may have only heard of them as having to do with your neck, maybe your throat. You're like, let me feel if your lymph nodes are swollen. And you might think, oh gosh, I have like 2 lymph nodes. But you really have like 300 lymph nodes. And so here's a little picture, not all 300 here, but behind your knees, your groin, your neck, you can see all through your gut, lymph nodes, all, they're all over your body to help screen out infection. It's like little collection sites for all the pathogens, where then you have the immune system come break them down. So about 300 lymph nodes help keep your body clear of infection. You want your lymph system to be moving so it can bring all the waste products to these like lymph node screen centers and get rid of those pathogens, get them destroyed. So lymph fluid mostly follows your veins. A lot of it is like 70% is under your skin. And so if you've ever heard of anyone doing anything like dry brushing, what they're doing is they're using the brush to help move the lymph, that lymph fluid. And so you want to move it from your extremities toward your heart. The lymph fluid all kind of collects toward the heart. I'll show you, I have a picture in the next slide. I'll show you kind of what that looks like. But it's not moved by a pump. Again, just like arterial blood is moved by a pump, but the veins are one-way valves. Lymph is just like that. It's like a one-way valve. Open and close with nearby muscle contraction. So if you're not moving your body, if you're just laying in bed all the time, you know how people get bed sores from laying in bed? You need to move your body to get your lymph moving, to keep your veins with the blood coming back to the heart through the veins. You got to move your body. Moving the lymph is a way of moving the nourishment and the waste management systems. And so if you're feeling like your cells are starving and the trash is piling up, start moving your lymph. You can exercise. You can do rebounding. Maybe you've seen people with those mini trampolines. I have a mini trampoline. I had one a long time ago that I bought on the cheap from a particularly well-known big box store. And I didn't know what I was missing. So I would try and do that, and it wasn't really great. But I thought, well, maybe this is what it is, So I would use it and meh. And then one day I went somewhere that had an actual real rebounder, mini trampoline rebounder for sure. And I got on that and I was like, oh, wow, this is like a whole entire universe different than what I bought at that big box store. So I went home and got rid of that and bought myself something better. I bought it used. It's fabulous still. And so anyway, that's a great way to move your lymph really, really effectively. Massage also moves the lymph because, excuse me, because what you're doing is you're massaging the skin. And since a lot of the lymph system is right there under the skin, of course that lymph is moving. And so you may, if you've ever had a massage, your massage, excuse me, your massage therapist may say, okay, well, here's a glass of water to drink, and they're doing that because they've moved your lymph system and they want to help with that kind of a lymph movement by having you drink some water. There are some herbs that help move the lymph system. They help that lymph system, sorry. Wow. They help the lymph system to move faster. I guess you can say that 10 times. One of those herbs is named mangista and is actually the same herb that was used for red coloring in paintings a long time ago, red madder root. Shouldn't be confused with another herb that also goes by the name of madder that is actually not at all the same herb as poisonous. And people get these things confused sometimes, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's poisonous, when mangista is not poisonous at all. It's not even the same herb. So you have to use the botanical name and make sure that you have the right herb via the botanical name, not some of these common names that are shared among a number of different herbs. Anyway, mangista is a great herb to help move the lymph system. And so here you can see the area that is blue is half of the body's collection system. So this is really kind of interesting that this area that's blue, all of the lymph from that area goes into this right lymphatic duct. And then all the rest of the body, you'd think it'd be half and half, but it's not. All the rest of the body goes into the thoracic duct, which is in the left side. So you've got the right side and just like a quarter of your body, and the left side, all of the rest of your body into both of those ducts. And that's where the lymph kind of dumps the whole rest of the stuff when it's done, goes in there to be moved right back into the blood. And so it's sort of this continual flow between the blood and the lymph. The fluid just sort of goes through the whole body. When it's full of blood cells, it's called blood. When it's not, then it's called lymph. It's essentially the same stuff. But it all carries nutrients and takes out the trash for you. And so you want to get it moving. So our two herbs that we're going to talk about today have to do with this circulation system in a little bit of a different way. Hawthorn is great for the heart and the circulatory system as we think of it. Ginkgo biloba is great for improving circulation, but we think of it more in terms of the brain and the nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the central nervous system, the brain. So hawthorn, people use hawthorn as a food and as a medicine. The berries and the leaves are both medicinal. Sometimes you can use the berries more for one thing, for like obesity and hyperlipidemia, which means high levels of cholesterol, high levels of triglycerides, the blood lipids. So hyperlipidemia, blood lipids, blood fats that are too many, hyper, okay? Use berries for that, using leaves and flowers together for cardio health. Sometimes people combine berries, leaves, and flowers, or berries, stems, and leaves. So hawthorn, super valuable plant. I use this plant all the time. I love this plant. This plant and I are friends. I use hawthorn for heart health. I have a family history that is not good. We'll just say it that way. Not good. And so I want to do everything I can to keep my heart strong, my cardiovascular system strong and happy. And so hawthorn does that. Hawthorn also has some psychological effects, improving your subjective well-being. It is said to be maybe an adaptogen. I think we're going to get to that maybe on the next slide. But if you remember the eclectic physicians, think back to our little discussion on history. So these were the people that were in America that really looked at the science behind what worked, and they were willing to accept anything that worked. It didn't have to be only one style of herbalism. They wanted everything. As long as it worked, they would use it. And so Ellingwood was an eclectic physician. He said, hawthorn, superior to any other of the well-known and tried remedies at present in use of the treatment of heart disease. And so hawthorn is very special. At least to him, it's special to me. But interestingly, in other countries, like in Ayurvedic medicine in India, there are all kinds of herbs, 10, 20, 30 herbs that are extraordinarily valuable to them, that do the things that hawthorn does. for the heart. There's also Chinese hawthorn, which is really pretty similar to the hawthorn we think of. It's a little bit different, but but they use it in many ways the same exact way. So the hawthorn I'm referring to is not the Chinese version of hawthorn. So I just find it interesting that there are herbs all over the world that do similar things. And to me, what that says is that there's no one herb that's planted in one part of the world that nobody else gets to have and everyone else has to suffer. And the only people that have that herb are those people near it. We tend to think maybe people in China got lots more herbs than the rest of us. But the thing is, people in China valued those herbs. They value them, they use them, they take care of them. They're careful to document. They've observed, again, millennia. And so we know about a lot more herbs from China than we do from, say, America, because in America, we don't value these things. So there are lots of herbs that are out there. I don't think that we have any fewer than the Chinese do necessarily, unless we've gotten rid of them through, landscaping or whatever. But certainly the whole earth is just rich with these kinds of herbs. There are many, many herbs that do similar things. And so because I find hawthorn special, hawthorn I could grow here. Hawthorn is kind of native to a lot of areas, but it's not really known in India. In India, they have their own herbs that really do the thing that hawthorn does. And we don't have those same herbs here necessarily unless we import them. So I think it's just good to think about how herbs are everywhere. And just because you know of an herb from one country and you don't know of an herb from another country doesn't mean that you have nothing near you or nothing in your country. All right, hawthorn. Cumulative benefits over time. So you can just take this over and over. It's not going to run out in 3 weeks. You don't have to limit yourself. You have cumulative benefits over time. It makes a difference for me. I can certainly feel it. So scientific evidence, very supportive of hawthorn in terms of the cardio impacts, and your reading for today focuses a little bit on that. It dilates and stabilizes. Okay, when we talk about stabilizing, we're talking about collagen. The collagen that is stable is strengthening your blood vessels. You want that to be stable. Dilates those, stabilizes blood vessels, improves the blood supply to the heart. It helps stabilize heart rhythm. So if you have palpitations or other trouble with heart rhythm, hawthorn may be helpful. It can normalize blood pressure. It's really known for that. So sometimes when people have high blood pressure, hawthorn can be helpful. It's not a super, super, super strong blood pressure normalizer, but it can be extraordinarily helpful. It can be calming. So in addition to giving you that sense of well-being, it can be a calming herb. And so you can think of it as a psychological connection there. Of course, with your heart health being better, the heart is so connected to the mind. We forget that. Again, we kind of divide things up into systems. But when a heart is functioning well, the mind is more at peace. Strengthening the actual heart muscle, improving capacity under conditions of stress. And so not necessarily improving capacity when you're not under conditions of stress because you don't really need it. So again, it's an indicator of an adaptogenic quality to this herb. Some people say it is an adaptogen. Some people say it's not really good enough to be an adaptogen itself, but it has maybe adaptogenic qualities. And this idea that under stress, it's improving your heart capacity is sort of an adaptogenic idea. But again, for me, I like to think of it as it is offering nutrition. And when your body needs that nutrition, your body can take it. If your body doesn't need it, then it doesn't need it. Okay, then the next one we'll talk about, last one for today, kind of short today, I know, making it up for it, is ginkgo biloba. A lot of people know ginkgo biloba. This one is pretty famous. People like to use ginkgo biloba to help them with their memory because it helps with their memory. It's a really useful herb. It's considered a secondary adaptogen by Yance. You've read a thing by him on adaptogens. He thinks of ginkgo as a secondary adaptogen. It is definitely neuroprotective. It really helps the brain a lot. And so here we have that psychology connection because ginkgo biloba is so helpful for the brain. It's called biloba because the leaves have two lobes, like bilobed. Anyway, so it increases blood flow throughout your body. And so ginkgo will help increase that blood flow. Ginkgo, hawthorn, you can see they both kind of have that increased blood flow part. Inhibiting platelet aggression. So you can think of this as thinning the blood. You can think of this as not as easily clotting. So sometimes if you want to go in for surgery, your doctor will tell you, don't be taking ginkgo biloba before the surgery because they want some blood clotting to happen because they're planning on cutting you. And so you need to clot. And ginkgo might make it a little harder for your blood to clot. It doesn't mean that it will make it so that you can't heal. You won't have like hemophilia. It's not anything like that. But doctors like to be very cautious when they're looking at surgeries, and they want to make sure that they can control as much as they can. And so usually it's a good thing to increase your blood flow. Usually it's a good thing to inhibit platelet aggregation. You don't want your blood clotting in general unless it really is supposed to clot because it's exiting the body, right? That's the only time you want it to clot. Long-term use of ginkgo biloba will improve attention, executive processes, and your long-term memory. It's not magic. No herb is magic. Sometimes people expect the same level of potency from an herb as they do from a pharmaceutical. And remember, pharmaceuticals are made from extremely potent plants, or they're made to be extremely potent. In other words, having a very powerful, immediate effect on the body. And herbs just don't do that. Herbs, whole mode of action is different. It's about being gentle. It's about moving along slowly to create benefit instead of yanking the body to where you want it to be. And so we have long-term improved memory. One study found, okay, so 3,500 people were looked at. These 35 people were over 65 years old. And over a 13-year study, what they found of these elderly people, that the ones who were taking ginkgo extract had more likely survival. So 25% increased survival probability because of the ginkgo. And so you're thinking all this extra blood flow, all this protection for the brain, excellent help for longevity. It increases dopamine synthesis, and dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is useful in many ways. But of course, don't think of it as, oh no, I'm going to have too much dopamine. Because remember, the herb is slow, gentle, and kind. It's not like a pharmaceutical that will create a dump of way too much dopamine as a side effect that is a problem. Here, it will give you a little more dopamine, but not so that your body is saying, wow, this is way too much. It dilates blood vessels. It dilates your lung airways. And so it can help with flow. So if you think about it, ginkgo improving flow, improving alertness, improving reaction time in the elderly. Ginkgo is used widely for elderly people. And it can even help, again, because you're improving flow, it can help with some vascular, blood vessel related disturbances of the inner ear, like, oh, it says ringing, but I mean ringing, add a G to that, ringing and vertigo. So that is ginkgo. That's it for today. Tomorrow we're going to talk about inflammation, eyebright, and turmeric, and I will see you then.